Hello humans, and hello all the Jeffs and Kyles out there who clicked on this video to learn how to sound like Excision, your favorite artist ever. Now first things first, before we get started, I need you all to stand up. I don't care where you are, if you're at the library, on the train, or at home at your desk. Just for 1 second, can you just
throw your X up?
Gang gang. All right. Just got to make sure that you're cool enough, you're with us, and you can watch this video and ingest this secret knowledge of how to sound like Excision using nothing but Vital. Here's a little sneak peek of the sound we'll be making today. And I mean, tell me if this isn't fucking spot on like 2016 to 2017 Excision. I mean, listen to this fucking shit. Now real quick, before you get started, that little drop loop you heard during the intro, this one. Basically, I took that initial Excision preset that I'm about to show you how I made and made a whole bunch of new versions out of it, a bunch of different types of, I even resampled some. I made a whole entire drop loop. Everything is completely stock plugins, stock everything, and you can go ahead and get this entire project file as well as all these presets, various racks I used, my mastering chain, everything that I did in this project is all available on my Patreon for a measly, I think $3 a month, and you get access to all the project files, presets, everything from all of my tutorials moving forward. This is the first one I'm doing it for. I'm gonna be pumping out more tutorials on a regular basis, and I also have other stuff on there like samples, dub plates, if you wanna give me a little bit more money each month. Either way, if you enjoy these videos and they really help you out, my Patreon is a great way to support me while also getting some more value, more knowledge, and some more tools. So definitely go check that out in the description. But hey, if you're a broke bitch just like me and you don't want to support my Patreon, something as simple as a like and a subscribe is just as amazing. And you still get access to the preset I'm about to show you for free down in the description. I'm not gonna hold that from you guys, but it is better if you go ahead and watch how I make it from scratch so you can truly learn and soak in some of these techniques and mindsets for sound design rather than just downloading a preset, throwing it in, and then not really learning anything. So with that being said, let's go ahead and break down this preset. Okay, so first things first, we need to initialize the preset. That resets everything in Vital. And then let's go ahead and start with the oscillators. So we're gonna be using 3 oscillators for this preset. They should all be available to you no matter what version of Vital you have. If they're not, then go ahead and download the preset in the description and you should have access to the wavetables that I use in this. So the main foundation of this preset is this hollow distorted FM. It's great for FM screeches and growls like you heard in this Excision drop I made. And it's what gives a lot of the tonality of this sound. The other 2 oscillators are more just adding more depth and girth to the sound. You'll see once we get to them. So we start out with this hollow distorted FM, and you're not gonna wanna do anything with anything. You just keep it there, and then you go over to LFO 1 and you make a nice little, what I call a sustain shape, which is just it ramps up in the very beginning. It's a great LFO shape to use for making sustains that have a little bit of movement in the beginning. Instead of just one static sustain where you click the button and then it's just instantly like, if you have this little ramp up, you get this sort of like build in the beginning that just adds some nice movement and makes the sustain a little less static and kind of pulls you in rather than just randomly just being there, you know? So we're gonna keep the level of this first oscillator actually all the way up, but we're gonna put this LFO on You see what I mean? You see what I mean? It adds so much more movement. We're gonna put the rate to 8. Although, like in the original preset, I'm not going to set the macros, but in the original preset, I macroed the rate so that you can automate that later on in your song and use it in all sorts of different ways like I did. But anyways, you want to have it linked to the frame of the wavetable, which basically, if you're coming from Serum, that would be the wavetable position. So it lets you scan through the wavetable. So we're already off to a good start. You know, you can make so much with that sound just distorting the shit out of it, you know? I mean, honestly, here, let's try it real quick. Oh, there we go. Anyways, yeah, so I have all sorts of fun with literally just this wavetable. It's a great wavetable, but here, we're gonna keep it moving. So next, we wanna add wavetable 2, go to basic shapes and bring it to a square wave. And as you can hear, that adds a bit more mid-range girth, because right now we mainly just have high end. And you want to make a really full sound with a lot of depth, you know? This is something a lot of amateur producers lack in their music, is that layering, making sure your sounds are harmonically rich. And you get that especially from basic shapes like a square wave, which fills up the entire frequency range. Now we're going to bring the level of that down. We're going to map the level over here to LFO1, bring it around, I guess, 0.462. So now we got that mid-range. All right, next we want to add the third oscillator, which is going to add a little more harmonics in the low end. Not quite a sub. Basically, you're going to want to put LFO1 on the level, and then you're going to want to put it again on basic shapes, but this time a triangle. And so to get to the triangle, you drag the frame up. Now, at the moment, it's just like a little bit of a sub, but we're gonna smear it a little bit. Which, as you can hear, the way the smear spectral warp mode is changing the wavetable, it's like shifting. Now, I'm not explaining what smear does. You can listen to that in my Vital masterclass that I put out for free on YouTube. In this specific context, the smear is basically, it's almost like a formant shift, kind of taking it from being just in the sub range to kind of shifting to the 100, 200 hertz range, which just adds a little more presence in the really low mids. It is slightly muddy, and I don't think this part is necessary. But it just makes things a little thicker, a little girthier. Now, I'm not someone who puts my subs in my preset. Usually whenever I have a sub inside the preset, it's simply to add those harmonics that you need to be in the low end, especially once you start processing things, distortion and all that. But I always usually cut the sub later on, and I write my subs separately, like you can see in Ableton. For this whole entire drop, here's the mid bass. And then separately is the sub. So that's just the cleanest way to do it. You don't have to run any issues. You don't have to worry about your subs sounding inconsistent or processing a preset and then it's completely destroying your sub. So like, just literally cut that shit and keep it going. Just use the sub for harmonics. That's at least the way I produce. All right, we're gonna keep things going. We're gonna turn down the phase to 0% on this bottom one. Since it's more in the sub range, I wanted to just stay consistent. Basically, anytime I'm doing anything like FMing or anything where I need the sound that's coming out of my synth to be consistent every time, whether it's on Vital, Serum, wherever, you want to turn down phase randomization to 0%. And then it'll always hit in the same exact space on the wavetable every single time, so the sound won't change. And you notice that the most with FM, where if you're FMing a sound, if the phase randomization is up, then certain sounds, the FM will completely sound different. And so you'll have certain notes where the FM sounds perfect and certain notes where it doesn't. So you turn down the phase randomization and then you set the phase wherever you feel it sounds like the best. Anyways, in this scenario, I guess I didn't turn down the phase randomization of these. I guess I like the variation. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and enable a filter. And we're going to do one of my favorite filters in Vital, which is the diode low shelf filter. It's like a low pass filter with a lot of beefy distortion and saturation. I mean, even like without the drive turned up, it still adds some like kind of beefy saturation to the sound that you won't find when you use analog, dirty, ladder, or digital. So diode is really good for working with like sounds that are FM'd and you want to be distorted. And I also totally forgot this sound isn't being FM'd in any way because we're using an FM wavetable, which sometimes in my opinion works even better than FMing in the synth. You can take some like FM8 sounds, you know, do some FMing in FM8 and then switch them over as a wavetable in here. Or if you're in Ableton, use operator, you know, if you don't have access to FM8. Anyways, we're going to take the cutoff of this and we're going to go ahead and map it to the LFO 1. That must be why I didn't use the level of the FM modulated to LFO 1, because this gives that movement we need. But of course, I wouldn't be using the diode filter if it weren't for the fact I wanted to use it on the drive. So first, let me make sure it's enabled to all 3 oscillators. There you go. Now bring that drive up to, I don't know, like 6 decibels. I sometimes think of this mode as just like a second distortion module aside from the actual distortion module. All right, anyways. So at the moment, this isn't really sounding anywhere near what the final preset sounds like, but hey, bear with me and we will get there. Oh, real quick, the other thing I almost forgot is I have the phase set to 97 on the original preset. So I guess that's where I felt this wavetable felt best. So next, we're gonna get to the effects section. So now it's time for the effects of the preset, all right? We're done with the oscillator, the filtering, and the LFO, at least for now. Okay, so first things first, with the effects, I generally like to start off with adding distortion and compression to my sound before I start adding a bunch of other stuff. Because a lot of times I'm using compression and distortion to bring whatever I've put in the oscillator section to its full potential and tonality and energy, you know? Like I'm using the multiband and the distortion to fully shape and tone the sound before we start adding processing that's more just adding on little extra textures and space to the sound, you know? So I usually put the distortion and compression on. Sometimes I put them on before I even start doing stuff with the oscillators just to see what I can get. So we'll start with the multiband. All right, just to bring the sound out a little more since it's being filtered. And we're going to turn the mix all the way up. We're going to keep the attack and release right where they are, and we're going to keep the low, mid, and high right where they are for the most part. In this instance, which isn't the case a lot, but in this specific instance, the default multiband preset is working the way we want it to. It's bringing out some of the highs and mids and compressing the low end just a little bit, kind of balancing things out. Now it's time to add the distortion, which we're gonna have the soft clipper, and we're gonna turn the drive up more. We're going to bring the mix down a little so we get the original sound, but it's just adding a lot of distorted texture on top. So we're getting heavier, but we're not quite where we want to be. So next we're going to enable the pre-filter and turn down the resonance. Turn up the blend so it's a little less low-end heavy, and bring the cutoff down to here. Now, the pre and post filter, it's basically an extra filter you have access to. It's pretty much can either be a high pass, low pass, or band pass filter. And it's added either before the distortion or after the distortion. So this is something to always consider as a sort of third filter before even this filter. Plus you have the EQ. So you have a lot of ways to filter. I love using the pre-filter before the distortion to just solidify the movement of the sound, which we're doing by dragging the LFO to the cutoff. And then you can kind of use the resonance to create a peak of tonality where you want the distortion to really focus on. Because distortion is going to start distorting whatever is loudest in the mix first. And that's going to affect the tonality in the greatest way. So one thing actually before we even fully get into the distortion, I mean, we've done all the settings, but before I finish explaining the distortion, is we're going to do some EQ to turn down the low end, because low end, even though our ears don't perceive it as loud as it really is, software and hardware aren't limited by human ear function. So when you have 0 decibels of sub, even though to us it's not overpowering the mix because we can't pick it up, our ears don't have the frequency response for that, and our speakers don't have the frequency response for that, distortion does. And so we're going to turn down the low end a little bit in the EQ using the low cut band. So yeah, we're going to put the low end right there. So then it's less clippy, distorted mess from the sub, causing distortion you don't want so quick. And then we're going to also, I took the first EQ curve, and like the one in front all the way to the right, which is the high shelf, I guess it would be. And we're going to use it to boost the mids a little bit. And then we're going to use this peak and notch one to kind of turn down the like 3K range area. We're going to bring the resonance so it's more of a, or less of a focused dip. And then put it in the area that feels the harshest. All right, we're getting there. Next, we're gonna add some more filtering. The key to clean sounds is lots and lots of filtering, cutting off all the extra fat that we don't want. So first off, we're going to turn this into, we're gonna turn this into a high pass filter. Now, real quick, actually, I said I would finish explaining this. The distortion, the pre-filter, this resonance. See how important like resonant peaks are before distortion without this? And then with it on, it accentuates that like high pitch scream. I mean, you can literally like take a sine wave, distort the shit out of it, and put some peaks and get like crazy screeches and FM sounding stuff without even FMing. Anyways, next we got the filter. We're going to put it on the analog 12 decibel, and we're just going to cut the lows a little bit. Simple as that, and we're going to turn up the drive. Actually, we can also bring up the resonance of this a little bit. So it's kind of actually, it's like cutting the lows while also boosting the lows a little bit. So we're kind of using this as more distortion, like throughout this whole entire sound. Yeah, we're using the filtering for movement and to filter things, but we're also using the filters for the drive function. I feel like this is something that gets overlooked a lot. People overlook the drive functionality of filters to use as different styles of saturation. So, starting to get closer and closer to how we want this to sound. Next, we're going to add a flanger. Now, for any of you guys, hopefully you're not confused by this theme I have. Hopefully it's still translating to your Vital. But hey, if you want this theme, it is available on my website, as well as a bunch of other dope products like an LFO pack for Vital. But the theme is available on my website for free. My website's linked down below, sonic-weaponry.com. So definitely go check that out if you want a free theme, if you happen to be insane like me and you like a light theme on Vital, or at least if you want this to make a little more sense. So we got the flanger here. Now this is more for a macro, so I guess I will do the macro. So we'll put a macro on the rate. All right, so that'll be the rate. And then we also have a macro for the flanger. And we can just keep the depth, feedback, offset. We'll keep the offset up, so it makes it a little stereo. And so we'll turn that down for now. This macro might be used for more later. We'll see. We'll also be adding reverb as another option to add space and some more character and depth and texture to our sound. So for the reverb, you can keep most of this the same. I'm going to turn the time down a little bit because we don't want a long decay on the reverb. We're going to macro the reverb. We're going to macro the reverb to a third macro. We got the flanger map to the second macro. That's space. All right, so now it is time for the final sauce for how to make this sound exactly like what I showed you in the beginning, because it's missing a little bit of extra movement. So we're going to go to the advanced tab. We're going to make an LFO that looks exactly like this. Just copy it down, and I've mapped the rate to our rate knob. Okay, so we're going to bring it to this to the tune. We're going to keep it exactly like it just defaulted to, where it's half, it's going up to 1. So now when we play it, you get that climbing sort of just pitch intensity tension that you get, right? What we're also going to do is we're going to map this to the cutoff of our filter module in the effects tab just slightly. So it's slowly cutting out the low end as things move along. It just cleans things up. You see? So make sure the cutoff's all the way over, and then you just map the cutoff slightly to this. Just cleans that shit right up. Then one thing I forgot to mention earlier is for the low shelf filter, you want to make sure you bring the resonance up. Without it, you get a lot less brightness and tonality in the high end. All right, and so then for the final step, to give it that Excision flair, that Excision energy and hype, an important part of the puzzle is vibrato, where it goes like, and to do that, you get the sine wave LFO shape preset, and then you drag it again to the tune knob. I have it at the 16th tempo. You can also get like a kind of slower, more evil, monstrous vibrato if you bring it down. And then what we're gonna do, what I did in the original is I mapped the mod wheel to the rate of this. So you can kind of adjust that. But then the final trick to get the full potential out of vibrato is the ability to automate when the vibrato happens. To do that, we got to get a little more complex. We got to go into the scary part of the synth, which is the matrix. Ooh. I mean, it was at least scary when I started producing. Now it's not so much. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag macro 4 onto this automation. Wait, actually, I don't think we actually need to go to the matrix. I lied. Never mind. All you have to do is just put the macro on there, and now this macro, vibrato, controls... Oh, I wrote vibrator. Oh, I did it again. Whatever, it's vibrator now. This enables the vibrato. And then you compare that with like automating the pitch bend, and you can make shit super tense, super exciting, but pretty much that's how you do Excision in Vital. So now that you have your preset ready, let me real quick break down how to sound like Excision with that preset once you put it all together. So first things first, Excision has really punchy, super heavy, classic dubstep kick. So look for a big thumpy classic dubstep kick. I used a disperser kick that I made for my Patreon, my monthly Patreon sample pack. It's just like a kick with a bunch of disperser and saturation on it and transient shapers. Got a nice little snare, and then I got that layered with the kick. Excision just uses really airy and clean classic dubstep snares. I don't use those types of snares very much. It's not really my taste, but if you want to sound like Excision, do that. And Excision usually always has a really basic just kick snare pattern, nothing fancy. Then fuck tons of cymbals. And I added this middle one as more of a variation, so that final hit as like the sort of call and response has like a very subtle difference in impact. But a lot of Excision's old music, like in this style, it's just lots of cymbals layered on every hit. I mean, without them, they really bring so much of the energy behind his drops. And I think so many new producers don't realize how much energy cymbals bring. It's important, like if you look at the mid bass, I'm rolling off the high end over here. You don't need all your high end and all the sizzliness coming from your basses. Clean that shit up, get it out of here, and replace it with sizzly cymbals that are a cleaner way of giving that high end energy you need. Then there's all the basses just arranged in different ways. Also, if you pick up the Patreon, you get this extra little sound, so that's a little bonus. So then we got the sub, which is just Vital, another Vital preset. This is a sub I use all the freaking time, and you'll be able to break all that down if you download the Patreon. And then to finish things off, we got first off, Excision is from the days of putting crowd noise in every single fucking song and drop ever, which is really not a bad idea. It's a great way to have subtle energy in the background and create a nice atmosphere. And then I have a big alarm because, again, the days of bro step and Brittum, which Excision is still a part of that whole formula. A big thing in the background, crowd noise and alarms. That brings a lot of that extra energy. I mean, here's without them. And then with it, it's probably subtle. Yeah, I almost can't tell, but it does really add that extra energy that your song is looking for, at least if it's in this sort of area of bass music. So, yes, this has been Qbik. I hope you guys really enjoyed this tutorial and learned some good shit. Let me know if you have any questions down below. I'm always down to help you guys out, answer any questions. Also, suggest some artists that you want to learn how to be like in the future, of course. Use this knowledge to better your own personal music and find your own style and sound. Don't just try to be the same like a rip off of your favorite artist. That's not really going to get you anywhere other than just it's cool that you can sound like that person. But like if you're trying to build your own brand and your own sound and style, you want to take this knowledge and apply it in your own way. But yeah, like and subscribe if you really enjoyed this tutorial. It helps with the algorithm. Go ahead and share it with your friends, any producer friends you think this tutorial might help. Send it their way. It'll hopefully help them the same way it helped you. Yeah, all my other info is down below. If you'd like to hear my own personal music, that'd be awesome. All the links are down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys hopefully in another tutorial very soon. Goodbye, humans. And yeah, just keep learning, keep growing. We got this.